Hey guys, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm going to give you a very thorough overview of the article, the details, in just a quick moment. Before that, I'm going to mention that there's a link in the description if you'd like to read through the details yourself. And also, I'm going to need to give you a very detailed trigger warning. This is a horrendous topic. There's a lot of detail within this article, and it's going to include full descriptions of the injuries suffered by the victim. So a full trigger warning in place. I'm going to be giving you an overview, but it's going to be very thorough. It's going to be very detailed. And I will read through certain sections of the article. So again, this is going to be a very troubling, depressing topic. So there is that preamble, that trigger warning, if you like. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. So this topic is in regards to the abuse, torture, beatings, and murder of a 10-year-old boy. His name, Leviticus Kuchta, also known as Levi, from Indiana. He was murdered in October 2020. He was murdered at the hands of his own elder sister, the whore. I'm going to say whore. The whore, the banshee that you see in front of you, April Lynn Kuchta Wright, Levi's 28-year-old elder sister. But not only her, not only is it the sister that is responsible for the ongoing abuse of Levi at the age of 10, which led to his murder, but also his elder sister's wife was also heavily involved in the ongoing abuse and ultimately the murder of 10-year-old Levi. At the point that Levi was under the guardianship of these two. Now, both the elder sister and the elder sister's wife have pled guilty. They've both been given plea agreements, and they're both testifying against each other. Now, there is a lot of details within the article, but it doesn't tell us who's guilty of making the final blows that took Levi's life. It doesn't quite get into that nitty-gritty, but it does seem very clear that both were involved in the ongoing abuse, the ongoing physical attacks upon 10-year-old Levi, and seemingly they both played an active part in the final blows that took his life. Neither stopped each other. They could have intervened. Neither did. They both allowed, they both enabled, they both perhaps encouraged each other to literally beat the life out of this scumbag's 10-year-old brother. To the point that when he was killed, his skull was dislocated from his spine. His skull was dislocated from his spine. I mean, can you imagine what torture, what injuries, how would that even happen? What would you need to do to a 10-year-old boy, this bitch's brother? As I say, they've both pled guilty, both the scumbag sister that we see in front of her and her wife, both have pled guilty to one count each of felony neglect of a dependent in the death of a young person, Levi Kuchta. And they've both accepted plea agreements which involve what's the right term? I can't think of the right term, but testifying against each other. Okay, so they're both testifying against each other as a part of their respective plea deals. We're told that this scumbag, the sister, could face a sentence of 20 to 35 years. We're not told about the sentence that could be faced by the sister's wife. I would presume, could be incorrect, but I would presume that the sentence would be the same, perhaps more, if there's more evidence that the sister's wife was more involved in the physical attacks. Within this article, we're not quite told, it's not quite clear to us if either party was the primary aggressor. That hasn't been clarified for us. My interpretation would be that it was the sister's wife that was the primary aggressor. However, that is not confirmed within this article. So we're now going to read through some of the details, which is going to really list a lot of the heinous injuries suffered by 10-year-old Levi. So prosecutors have argued that Levi was forced to endure unbearable pain in the days and weeks leading up to his death due to the extensive injuries and festering wounds that had caused chronic infections. Levi sustained puncture wounds and lacerations to his neck, scalp, face, arms, shoulders, back, hip, legs, and feet. Puncture wounds and lacerations all over his body caused by blunt force trauma. In addition to that, doctors found that those puncture wounds and lacerations all over his body were in various stages of healing. Okay, and we know what that means, or rather we know what that strongly indicates. That strongly indicates that he was suffering ongoing abuse. If he was attacked in one way or another a month ago, the bruises, the cuts, the lacerations, the puncture wounds would have started to heal. But there could be more fresher injuries. So he had a litany of injuries all over his body, puncture wounds, lacerations all over, in various states of healing. The forensic examiners determined that Levi's death was a homicide. He was murdered, and the murder was caused by the base of his skull being dislocated from his spine. The base of his skull being dislocated from his spine. In addition to that, there were dislocations of 2 vertebrae in his neck. In addition to that, Levi's jaw was dislocated on both sides of his face. He wouldn't have been able to speak. We don't know when that occurred. We don't know if that was within the final beating. I'm going to say this. I hope it was. Does that make any sense? I mean, the reason I say that is, wouldn't it be fucking unbearable if that had occurred some time beforehand and had gone untreated? A lot of his injuries had gone untreated. In addition to those horrendous injuries that I just read through, the doctor at the coroner's office said that he would have had great difficulty using his left hand because he had multiple infections in his fingers. And these infections were so severe that they'd cause skin ulcers and, even worse, necrosis, which is when the skin cells die. Necrosis, we see this. We see images online of people with fingers and toes blackened. They're rotting. They're dying. The limb is dying. Levi's left foot was in a similar condition, which would have meant that he would have always been in pain. Always been in pain. His fingers have got multiple infections. His fingers have got necrosis and skin ulcers. His feet, or rather his left foot, has got skin ulcers and necrosis. He's going to be in constant pain. And he may not have even been able to walk, according to the doctor at the coroner's office. Further to that, Levi also exhibited bruising to his testicles. That would have been caused by blunt force trauma. His sister's wife, would have attacked him this way and that way, causing blunt force trauma. What does that mean? They beat him with a stick, with whatever it was, with a utensil of some kind, or they kicked him, or they punched him. Where? Seemingly everywhere, including his testicles. This is a 10-year-old boy. Again, the injuries were found in various stages of healing. Levi almost certainly suffered horrendous abuse, horrendous torture, horrendous beatings all over his body, as well as subsequent neglect of any of the injuries that occurred, guaranteeing that he was in pain constantly and developing infections which were going untreated. And these happened since he was under the guardianship of his sister and his sister's wife. Now that occurred, the background to that is that the mother lost the guardianship of Levi when she was arrested in regards to a drug offense. Levi became in the guardianship of his grandparents, but then in August 2020, his grandfather died. So his sister, the 28-year-old that we're talking about here, April Lynn Kuchta, volunteered to look after Levi along with her wife. The pair of them stepped in to save the family from this troubling time. Don't worry, we won't stress grandmother from looking after 10-year-old Levi. We'll look after him. We're two grown adults. We're a married couple. We'd love to have the opportunity to look after April's younger brother. So that's what they did. They volunteered. Within a few months, as of October the 12th, 2020, Levi was dead. Police responded to a call at their home on October the 12th in regards to an unresponsive child. This scumbag that we see in front of us, the sister and the sister's wife, both of them said, "Oh, Levi was playing on his dirt bike a few days ago and he fell off. And he hurt himself, but we didn't want to cause a problem. We didn't want to risk him being sent to the grandmother's. So we just crossed our fingers and hoped that he would recover from his injuries. We didn't seek any treatment for his wounds because we didn't want to alert the authorities to the injuries, which were a complete accident because, again, he was playing on his dirt bike and he fell off." Guess what? Investigators found the dirt bike. It hadn't been used for months, if not years. It didn't start. It was covered in cobwebs. It was covered in shrubs. These two scumbags were lying through their teeth. So what a surprise. Neighbors said they hadn't seen Levi outside for months. Investigators found that Levi had been wearing makeup. Why was that? Well, to cover the bruises and the injuries that he had all over his face. He was wearing makeup. Was that his idea? Probably not. I wouldn't have thought so. I would think that it would be this scumbag's idea or her wife's idea. The grandmother tried to intervene. We don't know what the grandmother knew. Maybe she knew nothing. Maybe she knew a lot. But the grandmother tried to intervene. The grandmother appealed to regain the guardianship of Levi. However, the scumbag sister and the sister's wife said, "Oh, well, that's a great idea, Grandma, but unfortunately, Levi's got COVID, and you're an elderly woman, so for your safety, we can't put put Levi in your guardianship. He has COVID. It will be a danger to you. It might lead to your death, Grandma. So we're going to carry on looking after him." But they didn't look after him. They continued to torture him. They continued to beat him, neglect him. Until October the 12th, when they both took his life. That's how it seems. They're both pleading. They're both testifying, rather, against each other. Most definitely, they're both involved. They've both pled guilty. Again, they've pled guilty to several charges, but notably pled guilty to one count of felony neglect of a dependent in regards to the death of Leviticus, Levi, Kuchta. They've both pled guilty. It is possible that one was the primary aggressor and the other played more of a secondary role to some extent. That's possible. We're not really informed of that within this article. But either way, they were both involved in at least some level of active aspect to beating 10-year-old Levi and inflicting the litany of injuries that we've seen, that we've read through, including having his skull being dislocated from his spine. These two evil, psychotic witches need to be burnt at the stake. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? I'm not sure. If I get a warning, I get a warning. But they need to be burnt at the stake. That's not going to happen in this day and age. I'm being hyperbolic. Hopefully they do get very long sentences. We're told that this scumbag is facing a sentence between 20 to 35 years. We're not sure about the sentence for the wife. I presume it's the same or more. And I just hope that they do get very long sentences. That they never have the opportunity to have any exposure to any children at all at any stage if they are released at any point. And in the meantime, when they are incarcerated, I do hope that the other inmates have plenty of opportunity to have nice, cozy little chats with both this scumbag, elder sister, and this scumbag's wife. I hope the other inmates have the ability to have a nice, cozy chat to reminisce about their treatment of 10-year-old Levi Kuchta. They can have a little chat about how did they manage to dislocate both sides of his jaw. How did that happen, ladies? How the fuck did that happen? How did you leave him with necrosis on his left foot, necrosis and skin ulcers on his hands, to the point that he would be in constant pain, barely able to move his hands, possibly not even being able to walk? How the fuck do you stand by and let that happen to your own brother? To a 10-year-old boy? I hope she can try to explain that to her inmates. And I hope her inmates have the opportunity to give their rebuttal, to explain how they feel about how these fucking witches dislocated Levi's skull from his spine, dislocated vertebrae from his neck, left him with puncture wounds, lacerations across his entire body, bruising on his testicles. You fucking evil witch. I really would love to see the other inmates getting to know you and really having the opportunity to spend some quality time with you. I'm going to wrap things up here at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe. Thank you.